Well, hi folks, this is Darren with myrvworks, and what I want to do today is introduce you to a tool that I kind of conceived, designed, tested, and refined. We've started a new company called T3 Interface. Its website is letter T, the number 3, t3interface.com, and that's another company that we started. And we started that company mostly because I make tools, I enjoy making tools, and I'm starting to make tools for the RV techs in the world. And so T3 Interface has started out with some tools. We've got a couple of them right now, and we've got plans for many, many more. So when we're talking about LP pressure in an RV, we could talk about tire pressure in a vehicle. Okay, so you see how the tire pressure, you need a tire pressure gauge in order to figure out how much pressure is in your tire in your vehicle. So when you're working on RVs, it's the same. It's the same thing. You need pressure. You need LP pressure in your LP lines to service your furnace, your refrigerator on LP, your water heater on LP, your let's see, we got furnace, your stove and your oven, if those are LP appliances. Some of you with older RVs, I have a 57 and a 73 RV, and both of those have lamps inside that run on LP flame on LP fuel. Some of you might have a generator on board that also runs on LP. So LP is used a lot, and some of them, they're having these quick disconnect outside, so an outside grill. So we're using LP a lot. It's a very safe gas. We're going to get into more of that in other videos. We're starting a whole new series called myrvworks Tech Academy, where I'm going to go in great detail on LP. But that's not the nature of this video. What I want to talk about in this video is how to tap into the LP to use like what you might think of as a tire gauge, a pressure gauge, to check the pressure of your LP. So if you are an RV tech, I'm going to assume that you know about LP pressure, that you know how to do your operating pressure test, that you know how to do your lockout pressure test, you know how to do a 3-minute time pressure drop test. So if you do not know what I'm talking about with the operating pressure test, the time pressure drop test, and the lockout pressure test, then you have no business having one of these tools. So this is a video introducing a tool for RV techs that do work on LP. These would be individuals that have been through training. I had to go through an 8-hour training course to get my license. These are people that work for a company that has at least $1 million liability policy to be able to work on LP. So if you're working on LP on an RV, don't just buy these things and start tapping into them. You really need to have a license. You really need to make sure you're insured. You really need to go through training. So what I'm doing here is for those people that have had that training, that do have that license, that do carry that insurance, this is a tool that I want to introduce to you folks. Other folks, you're welcome to watch along and learn what we would do with these tools. So it's like watching a surgeon do open heart surgery. Doesn't mean you're going to jump on the operating table and start working on a patient, but you can still watch and learn. So what I want to do, let me bring you guys a little bit closer and pan you down, and I'll introduce you to some of these tools that I've created, and then I'll demonstrate how you might use those. So when I became an RV technician and I started working on LP pressure, I came across a design to make what we might call a tap jig. And so basically it was a cross. It had a gas valve on it right here. This is a number 41 hole. The number 41 hole represents 75,000 BTU of pressure in an RV. We call that a 50% hole, okay? When you're doing a operating pressure test, you need to do your operating pressure test with a 50% load. And so your configuration would be like this. This might be where you might tap into your lines, okay? And I'm going to do a demonstration on that a little bit later. And then when you're tapped into your lines, your manometer would be connected to here. Manometer would either be a digital manometer, a gauge type manometer, or the ever effective slack tube. These freeze in the wintertime, so so you have the slack tube, which is extremely accurate, and I like it the best. The gauge, I have them. They're not great because you're only ever going to use the lower end of it over here, you know. And then the digital one is what I use the most because I can do minimum, maximum averages, and I could look at different scales. So you would need a manometer. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you already have one. But your manometer would be connected right here. And so you're tapped in, you're gas tight, And then when you got your manometer, that's when you would open up your LP line and you would let 50% of your flow, representing 75,000 BTU, escape into the atmosphere, and you would get a reading on your manometer. And that would be how you would do your operating pressure test. Once you get your operating pressure test set to 11 inches of water column, then you would close this and read the lockout pressure. The lockout pressure should never go greater than 14 PSI. 14 inches of water column. Sorry about that. And then you do your 3-minute test. So like I said, I'm not going to get into that. If you're watching this and you're interested in these tools, you should already know all about doing those things. This is a tool to help you tap in. So I made this tester, this jig originally. It had a 3/8 flare male, and then over here I had a 1/2 inch male flare because we would run into the different 3/8 and the 1/2 inches in an RV. And so this is what I made, and I use this for years. I've introduced this on a couple videos that I've made, and people have asked me for the design specs to make this, and I've shared that with a lot of people. Okay, so after I used this for several years, there was times where I could not get this into a spot. I just really couldn't get it in there, and it took a few minutes to connect and disconnect and everything. So I came up with this next design, and I felt that, oh, let me use a flexible hose, you know, and typically I like to do my testing at the refrigerator because it's outside, the cylinders are outside, it's easy to walk around back and forth, and I can tap into that 3/8 fitting, and I would connect this right at the refrigerator port. And it's the same thing, a number 41 hole, gas valve, manometer, hose would plug in right here, okay? And so it's basically performing the same thing. It's still across, and here I would have a 1/2 inch male flare, and this was a 3/8 inch male flare. And so this allowed me to get the tool in to where I needed to work, okay? And I used this for a number of years. Then I would be working on these systems, and I would need to tap into different parts. So then I took this design and I basically decided, well, I don't need it to be flexible anymore. That didn't need that. And I basically created this one here. So here's my number 41 hole. I had a gas valve, manometer would connect to here, and I made this kind of like a quick connect. And so, for example, I would have had there. So now I have, that's actually a 1/2 inch, and I made a 3/8. Okay, so I made a 3/8 and a 1/2 inch, and then there were times where I might need to connect into my actual gas valve. So I made one with a quick connect where I could just screw it right into the gas valve with this 1/8 inch male pipe thread, and I could screw that into the gas valve, and then with this part of it, I could just connect in. Okay. Well, I liked this tool a lot. I like the idea of being able to have my taps. So 3/8 and 1/2, I'm going to move him over here. So I like the idea of being able to have my taps set, but it turned out that when I was connecting into the lines, these were big and bulky, and I wanted to be able to do other things with it. So I came back to the drawing board and I designed another design. Okay, so I guess I'm sharing with you all of my designs to bring you into where we are today with what, I didn't just wake up and do this. These are all ones that have been tested in the field. What did I say? Designed, tested, refined. Oh, we got to make it good. So we had this one first. Then we had the one with the flexible tube, which was basically the same one with an extension. Then I went with the quick connect over here. And so I'm going to move the cylinder out of the way. Put them down there. So then I basically miniaturized that one, and I came out with this design. And I put a lot of thought into this one. Again, a number 41 hole here on the end. A shutoff valve. The ones I'm making today, so this is a version of what I'm making today, but the ones I'm making today are going to have a yellow knob like this, okay, here, okay, and so I've got a quick disconnect. Now you might recognize this quick disconnect. It's a standard in the RV industry. You can get a hose, your LP hose. Now on my manometer, I made it so that the manometer now has a quick connect. So now, just like that, I connected my manometer, whereas this one, when I did this, I had to take my silicone hose and plug it on and unplug it, plug it on and unplug it. And what I found was when I did that, I would fatigue over time. I was fatiguing my silicone, and it would cause a leak. So I came up with this quick disconnect design. So that's kind of a neat feature that I enjoy. And then I put a little cap on it to keep it clean. I'll just put this on there for now. So that was where my manometer connected to. And then I made a quick connect here. And then, like, for example, here I made a jig where it's 3/8, just like we had over here, just like we had all the way at the beginning. Okay, so this one would connect, and when I redesigned it, I designed it with this valve here. So when you're connected into your 3/8 line, you have a shutoff valve, and it's shutting off here on the like an air chuck in a shop, but I've also got it here. So I went ahead and designed it with that feature in it as well. So this would be connected into the line that I'm testing, and then this would fit. My manometer is attached here, my number 140 hole, 41 size hole, and here's where I can check for my operating pressure. But there may have been a time where this won't fit. So the thought behind this was now we can use this pretty much standard type grill hose. And now, so I'm trying to go back to what I had here. So now this could be way in the where I'm tapping into the line, and now my main manifold where my manometer is and where I'm testing my pressure is now a distance away. Okay, so I was really pleased with some of these designs, and so I've been using that for a while, and I love it. And that's the one that I'm making available to you guys, is this design. But wait, there's more. So where I was with this one, I have the 3/8 and the 1/2 inch, because sometimes on the older RVs we'll come across, and even the newer RVs will come across 1/2 inch. So I've got this adapter here, and the adapter is a female flare to a male flare onto a 3/8, and so we just screw that on there, and now we've adapted this to a 1/2 inch flare. Okay, and so that makes one. So whereas before I had 2 jigs, 1 3/8, 1/2, now I just have this little adapter that screws onto this, and now it's changed it. So that's kind of nice. So still with the quick disconnect feature. Okay. It was always important when we're testing these things to test it with the gas valve. And I'm going to demonstrate that here in just a minute. And so I made another jig here that basically screws into a gas valve with 1/8 inch thread. So you would screw that on, and then just like before, you could quick disconnect it or quick connect it to do your testing. If you're going to go to if you're going to go to National Pipe Thread, then you would need a lubricant. You would need a thread sealant to go on the threads. You never, ever, never put sealant on a flare. Ever. Never sealant on a flare. Always sealant on pipe thread. Okay? So this jig, 3/8 with an adapter. This jig, 1/8 inch National Pipe Thread to this. And then a lot of times when we do our leak test, we would do it at the stove orifice. And I'm going to demonstrate that as well. So I created another jig, but this one connects to, like your stovetop. You lift your stovetop up, take your burner out of the way. You got the little orifice, the bud where the gas comes out. So this connects right onto that, where you can tap it in and you can get your 3-minute leak test right at the stovetop. So there was a tap there. So I was pleased with these. These I've used in the field for quite a while. And then I started to think about some other taps, so I created this one right here. Now what this tap's going to do, let me grab a regulator. So here we have a high flow regulator, it's green, as opposed to the blue low flow. And what we could do here, now this regulator does have a tap where you can connect directly into the gas line right there. And so that's where you would use this tap, okay? But on some of the regulators, let me make sure you can see where I'm at here. So this tap could tap directly into the regulator. You could do all your testing right here at the regulator. But if it doesn't have the tap, some of the regulators don't have this, then you could take off this line that feeds the RV, and then again, because it's pipe thread, you would use your rector seal. Then this one could screw right onto here, and then you would connect your flexible hose to the RV, and then what you've got here is you could tap into it right there as well. Okay, so there's another way to tap into it. Now I'm making another tap. So as you see, I'm starting to build my collection of taps. I'm making another tap, which I don't have with me right now. It's over on my it's my crafting table for those Minecraft people. Is basically, whereas this one will connect directly into the end of a LP line, what I'm making it is it's going to be a pass-through. So one side's going to be male flare, the other side's going to be female flare, and then just like this one was able to connect in the line, this one is going to be basically the same thing, but it's going to be flared, male and female flared. So that's going to be another tap that will be added to the family here of taps. Okay. So I was very pleased with this. I've used this in the field. It's actually a lot of fun to use these jigs. And then I started to realize that maybe there's a time where I don't need the big disassembly stuff. Sometimes I just need a standalone. So now what I'm making is standalone jigs that don't have the quick disconnect. It's just all this is basically this one all by itself. So you would connect it with a 3/8. Again, the adapter to 3/8 to 1/2 inch would work. Okay. You have your number 41 hole, which is industry standard. And then here we have our gas valve to turn it on and off. And then here the manometer has a quick connect on the top. Okay. And so I've got this as a standalone. And then here was another one that I made for the stove pressure drop test thing. So I made it a standalone. And all of these, in fact, are going to become standalones. So here we have our quick disconnect. There's one more quick disconnect that goes here. And they're all going to be quick disconnect, but they're also all going to be standalone. Okay, so these are all going to be ones that will be available on our website, myrvworks.com. You can click on our resources tab, and you can also click on our store. And on our store, you'll be able to access not these. These are the old, this is how we got here. So these are gone. I'm not going to make those anymore. But we needed to make those in order to get to here. Now, if you're a tech, you might just need to get if you're a tech and you're just doing PDIs, then you might just want to get this to do your time pressure drop test. You're not doing anything more than a time pressure drop test. Okay, so you can check it at the stove. So this might be all you need. But if you are a tech and you're doing some diagnosis on LP, then you might want to get one that taps into the refrigerator just to get you access into the plumbing of the gas system. If you're a tech like me, you're more of a generalist, you do all kinds of things, then this would be the thing. And the way we've got it set up is you need to at least order the manifold part, and then you just kind of accessorize it. You know, you would just get that one. And then the time comes like, you know what, I need to get that one as well. And then, you know what, I need to get this one as well. So you can come back and order whichever ones you need and build your kit as you need to. This is also a part that we have, and then we also offer that. And we also, I was at a store the other day looking at guns, and I found this pistol case. Oh, okay. These are all the little caps that I have that plug onto things to keep the threads clean. So they're all going to come with these little caps connecting all of our threads. But it turns out that this pistol case, it's also something that we offer. The pistol case, everything fits inside the pistol case. So you can kind of, yes, when we get a little bit more time, I'll probably get a CNC machine and cut the foam and all this kind of stuff. But look, all that fits in there, and it closes nice, and it keeps it totally compact. Okay, so that was kind of a nice thing. So that's what I get for looking at my handguns. Yay. So that is what this LP tap jig is all about. And so what I'll do now is I'm going to do some demonstrations on how this might work. Okay. So if we were going to do an operating pressure test on the RV, a lot of times I'll go with the refrigerator. Now, so this is the refrigerator burner. The burner's over here, the gas valve's here. And so I'll take my wrenches and I'll disconnect this. And then I'll go ahead and put this tap right in that 3/8 fitting. And I'll tighten it up with my wrenches. Okay. And now that that's there, it's upside down. Well, it's upside down. Okay, so then you see what I'm going to do here, right? I'm going to take my my manifold, quick disconnect it to here, and then I will take the manometer. So in this orientation, I would go to my service valve, open my service valve on my cylinder or my AMSE tank. So that would pressurize this line. I've got this valve open here. I'm into my manifold. This is closed, so I'm not venting to my number 41 hole, but I am venting to my manometer, whether you use the slack tube, the gauge type, or the digital type. If you use the gauge type, you do need to calibrate that. I usually use those like maybe once a month. It's pretty simple. The digital does not get calibrated, and the slack tube is what everything gets calibrated to, so you don't have to calibrate your slack tube. So at this point, I'm actually tapped directly into the LP line, and I used a quick disconnect, and now I can open up my valve. Now I'm venting to the outside, and I can actually read my operating pressure, 50% load operating pressure. And that value right here is what you adjust your regulator to, is the number you get right here. You're looking for about anywhere from 11 to 13 inches of water column with this valve opened. Then you close this, okay? And then that number here should not go over 14 inches of water column, okay? You do not adjust the lockout pressure, you adjust the operating pressure. And the operating pressure is at 50%, and then the lockout pressure is a function of the ability of the regulator to lock out once you've established your operating pressure. Okay, I've talked to some folks and they're doing the LP pressure test incorrectly, where they are getting their operating pressure without a 50% load. For more information on this, you can go to NFPA 1192 Section 5, and they go into the proper procedures for performing an LP operating pressure test, a lockout pressure test, and a 3-minute time pressure drop test. All right out of the NFPA 1192 manual. So here would be where we were checking our pressure on here. Now, if I wanted to take this apart, I could close that, disconnect, and put all my stuff away. Okay, turn off my service valve. And a lot of times when I turn off my service valve, I might leave this connected here. And so I've turned off my service valve, and then I will bleed this out. And then once my manometer shows 0, that's when I would basically disconnect all this, because then I know that this is not under pressure. Okay. So another thing I might do, the one that I was talking about that had the flare fittings on both sides, I don't have it with me here, but imagine if this had a male flare and a female flare. Then I could actually connect the female here, connect the male here, and now I am going to be checking my pressure as it's working its way through the gas valve. Okay, that's one way we could do a test to determine if this is getting pressure. Now, the reason I would do that is because maybe there's a gas valve that does not have the port where you can actually tap into it. If it's got this port, then I would use the tap that's got the 1/8-inch national pipe thread. I would put some rector seal on those threads, take out the cap that accesses into the port, because now you're on the outfeed side of the valve, and then I would screw that right in. We just did a video where I did that, and I demonstrated using that. So this then would tap into the outfeed side of the valve. And if you're checking your valve, that's where, again, pretend this has got the flares. I then would have, I'm going to just kind of mock this up here. I could then have, you could see how with the quick connect, I can check the pressure before the valve and after the valve, couldn't I? And then I could just connect this to here to see it before the valve, here to see it after the valve, to see if my gas valve has fouled out. And it'd be really quick to just quick connect these together. Okay, so that would be how that would be working. So I wanted to show you that. Now what I want to show you is, let me kind of do some housekeeping. That goes there. Pretended that this had the flares on it. This one's got the 1/2-inch national pipe thread, which is going to work on your regulator fitting. That's what this one's for. And then this is the adapter that goes to make him work on bigger. Now let me show you where you would use this one. Okay. So if you want to do your timed pressure drop test, that's a 3-minute test. And a lot of times that's done here at the stove surface. If you don't, you can do it anywhere you want to, but if you do it on one of the inline parts, then you're going to have to do a leak test with that little sniffer device or your leak solution. So if you do it at the stove, you skip that step. Okay. So to do it at the stove, you would lift up your stuff. Now this is obviously an old nasty stove out of an old nasty RV. But basically you're going to move one of your burners and gain access to your little stove bud right here. And then you would take the one with the tube on it, and you would basically connect it right onto that bud right there, okay? And then you would take your manometer, your manifold, I'm calling that a manifold, okay? Close everybody, open him up. And then your manometer would then connect right onto there. Here's a joke. I hear a seagull off in the distance. Do you know why they call them seagulls? Because if they flew over the bay, it'd be a bagel. Okay, dad joke. So now I'm tapped into the bud here, and just like before, but this time I'm not really doing, you really cannot and should not do your operating pressure test and your timed, well, you should not be doing your operating pressure test and your lockout test here at the stove. The reason why is because there's an additional regulator right here. This regulator is going to basically protect everything downstream, which you just tapped into downstream of that regulator. Now you could do it upstream, which is where you could do all these tests here at the stove. So the fitting that comes in to the stove, let's just pretend this is it here. You could basically tap into the stove all right here. And the fitting that's got the flare on it, the male and female flare, you could actually connect that right here and reconnect your line. And then then you could do your time pressure drop test in this all in one spot. So that's kind of another benefit of the quick connect feature of this. Okay. So this, now when you do your time pressure drop test, you are going to bring your pressure down to about 8 inches of water column. And then you're going to close your service valve. And then you're watching to see if, and the way you do that is you would connect this burner gets turned on all the way. You then should get your reading of your LP pressure. Again, note it's going through this additional second regulator. But then you would turn on another burner and you would watch your manometer. When it gets to 8, that's where you turn it off. You time that for 3 minutes. If the pressure starts to go up, that could be an indication that your regulator seat has failed. And if that happens, a lot of times I will find out that people use Teflon upstream of the regulator and on a flare fitting, and that Teflon flaked off and went inside and clogged out the seat within the regulator. Those seats are really small. It could be an indication that there may have been oil in the line from your pigtails that are leaking if the pressure is going up. If the pressure goes down, that means you have a leak somewhere in your system. But this is where you would test all that, okay? And so when you're done, you just turn everything off. Now, okay, so one more point I wanted to make. Let's move this out of the way. This is where these standalone products come in handy. So if you're just a PDI tech and you're just doing PDIs, then all you need is this. This is it. So you gain access to your stove, connect that on, connect your regulator here. Your regulator, listen to me, manometer. Trust me, I'm a professional. You would connect your manometer, whichever manometer you choose. And so here I have my, from here I could do my timed pressure drop, my 3-minute time pressure drop test. Okay, so all I needed was this jig right here to do that. Okay, so you wouldn't need to have all the fancy, expensive quick connect ones. You could just go with the standalone one. Okay. Well, folks, that's really what I wanted to show you with this tap jig that I made. We're making them with my sister company T3 Interface, but we're selling them through myrvworks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your attention. And this is a tool that I'm making for you guys, and I would love to make one and put it in your hands so that we can help people have safe LP system pressures in their RVs, and they then, and you also can say myrvworks as well. So from all of us, from myrvworks and from our company T3 Interface, I want to thank you for your attention. And if this was helpful, jump over to our website and buy one for yourself or your favorite RV technician. This is Darren with myrvworks, signing off until the next video. Thank you.